Powered by Riverside FM.
All right, so our next guest is a master of special teams, which any of our listeners know we appreciate more than most. Born and raised in Northeast Ohio and resides here still, his career statistics include 869 punts for 38,016 yards. That's 43.7 yard average, in case you were wondering. 285 punts inside the 20. And NFL records include most punting yards in a season, 5,209 in 2012. And in that same year, he had the most punts inside the 20 in a season with 46. But let's let him tell you about it himself. Please welcome one of the punting greats, Dave Zastudil. Yeah. Dave, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for taking the time to join us here. Now, before we get to some of the questions that we have for you and about you yourself, we want to talk about a big event that we have coming up that you'll be attending with us this spring. I'm talking, of course, about the Cleveland Browns fan cruise in March of 2024. It is confirmed you'll be there kicking punts off the back of the ship to the trained orca whales that SeaWorld has released into the wild. All right, maybe that's not happening, but still, you'll be there. You'll be having fun with us. We are emceeing events on the cruise. We'll be on the cruise, kind of hosting everything, and we can't wait to join you. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about the Cleveland Browns fan cruise?
Yeah, sure. It's going to be a really fun event. Anytime you can get former players together, in a socially relaxed environment, not only you have, people, alumni from all different decades coming to this, but you're going to have kids on the cruise. You're going to have families, and to get everybody together and have activities on the cruise, walk around, be with kids, see everybody just have a good time. All that does is really bring together the Browns organization and their alumni back together to really enjoy a good time, to help promote just a fun event that, I don't think the Browns have ever done this in the past. And I know there's been organizations that have done it. It's been very successful. I know past players and talking to them have had a great time on these cruises. And that's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to take part in this, is really to be with the fans, talk old memories, get those guys excited about the Browns, whether it's this year, going into next year. It's truly going to be fun, and it takes place in March. And if you haven't gotten a ticket or tickets are still left, come aboard. We'll have a good time.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Everybody's definitely excited about this, and we will come back to the fan cruise and talk about that a little bit more. But while we have you on the program, we want to talk about you. So let's get into your story a little bit. I know that, like I said in the opening here, born and raised in Ohio. Where'd you go to high school?
So I went to Bay Village High School, about 20 minutes west of Cleveland. For
nice.
Maybe there's some people that aren't familiar with the area, but yeah, I went there. Graduated in 1997. I was born and raised. I know, everyone always talks about St. Ignatius and St. Ed's around here, the big football programs, but we had a great senior class, and I grew up playing with those kids, and I wanted to see what we could do, and had a great high school career. One of the best, probably the best moments of your life is Friday Under the Lights. No matter what era you play in, what level you play in, you can't beat Friday Night Lights.
It's funny that you say that. We were literally just talking about that before we started recording here. My board man and I were saying, if we could just live our lives and have our adult lives, but also play high school football and feel like you felt after a high school football game and not be hurting real bad afterwards, it'd be like the greatest thing that could ever happen.
Yeah, and then we wish our bodies now felt like they did back when we were 18. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
No. We did an alumni game for our high school. It was probably, 5-10 years after we graduated, and I felt like I got hit by a truck the entire next day.
That wasn't fun.
God bless you guys. I don't know if I could do that, but.
Yeah.
Were you a specialist all the way through high school, or did you dabble in and try and play other positions?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to start at quarterback my sophomore year. And so I played quarterback sophomore, junior, senior year. The head coach one time, he didn't have a punter, and he says, hey, guys, line up on the side of the field. And on the other side of the Bay practice field, we have a bunch of trees. And there's about 4 or 5 of us. And he said, whoever can kick that ball farthest, you're my punter. I mean, it was really that simple. So I think I was the last to go, and everybody got it just across around 52, 53 yards away. And I think my punt went like up in the trees. So he says, Zastudil, you're my guy. And so when I was in high school, I punted, was a quarterback. And then my senior year, I became the place kicker as well. And with those positions, I didn't play too much on defense. But when I did, it was more at the safety position.
Nice. So just a stroke of fate there, I guess. Like, here, kick the ball as far as you can, and you happen to hit a good one that time, right?
Yeah, well, I always had a pretty good leg when I was a kid playing youth soccer, and back then we played a ton of kickball, and so I always just kicked that ball, and it was just a God-given talent. And once I kind of started working at it a little bit, I said, "Wow, I think I could probably do this in college," and that's kind of where that kind of led to. So, but yeah, I wanted to play quarterback in college more than anything, but I was only good enough to play Division I as a punter, so I took that route.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. And you mentioned college. You did end up at Ohio University, if I'm not mistaken. So tell us a little bit about your time at OU.
Yeah, so I went on a couple of recruiting trips. I was recruited heavily by the Mid-American Conference. A lot of the big schools back then, Ohio State's, the world, the West Virginias in the world, if you're looking at a couple big-time schools I was recruited by, they want you to come on and walk on because they get everybody that wants to play there. So they get 10 or 11 punters, and then you compete, and then you're a preferred walk-on. Well, when I went to Ohio University, it's where my mom went. My dad and brother went to Miami of Ohio, so it was kind of split right down the middle. And at the end of the day, I liked what Jim Grobe was doing at Ohio University. He came over from the Air Force Academy, and we had a great class. I mean, I loved everyone I met. I loved the facilities. Loved the university in general. I kind of made the decision that if I got hurt, tore my knee up, tore an Achilles, is this the place I'd want to get an education at? And that was kind of a big part of choosing Ohio University. So, went there, and I was a third-string quarterback my freshman year, and Jim Grobe brought in the option. And so I got crushed in the spring game because I run like a 4.9 40. So he pulled me aside. He said, Zastudil, you're just going to be our punter, and that's it. So I was redshirted, and then for 4 years, I had some pretty good awards, pretty good accolades, and it led to some good things. But first I tried to prove that I was a quarterback at OU, and it just didn't work out.
So in another stroke of fate, the worst offense that they could possibly install for you got installed, and your quarterbacking days were over.
Oh, by far the worst. Yeah, exactly. Could have been worse.
Oh yeah, so
it worked out.
No, and that's awesome. And I know you said you had some accolades. You're being pretty modest. I know you were an All-American as a freshman, MAC Special Teams Player of the Year as a sophomore. Pretty big awards that you won there, huh?
Yeah, I always looked up to a guy named Brad Maynard. Brad Maynard punted about 17 years for the Bears, and he went to Ball State. And so our recruiting coordinator was a guy named Ray McCartney. And Ray always talked about, as times at Ball State, this Brad Maynard guy, who I think was the only punter ever to get Defensive Player of the Year in a conference. So he'd show me some tape, and I remember going through it saying, I kind of want to become the best punter in Mid-American Conference history. And I took on that challenge, even though Maynard had some unbelievable, awards and some stats behind him. And who knows how that ever ended up, but he kind of motivated me to be a great great punter. And I took it very serious. Sometimes you wish you could go back and realize that maybe going to the bar one night during the week wasn't good for practice. But at the end of the day, I matured as I got older, worked out really hard, and then good things came from it. But I really enjoyed our time at the MAC.
So at what point did you kind of realize that you had the leg, an NFL leg? Obviously you started in high school there, booting it over the trees, but like, what was the moment, or was there a mentor or a coach that kind of was like, hey, you have what it takes?
Yeah, probably one moment that always sticks out to me is we were playing Wisconsin, my redshirt freshman year at Wisconsin, and we didn't have a chance to win. So we punted a ton, and I was extremely nervous because it was my first big time game, big environment, and I just wasn't hitting my first two balls very good. But in practice, I was hitting 65, 70 yarders. I was placing it where I wanted. I remember Jim Grobe coming up, grabbing me by the shirt, and literally like almost punching me, but getting my attention, saying, you are good enough to be one of the best punters in this league for a long time. Relax and just do what you do in practice. And I think it just kind of dawned on me that, he really believed in me. And then I finished that game really strong with a good average. And after that, my college career just took off. I relaxed. I realized I could do it. And it's always one of those moments or twos that just stick out with you. And him kind of getting in my face going, hey man, like, you're good enough to do this. I've seen you do it in practice. Just pretend we're at practice. And then things changed for the better. And, I started really, really booming the ball after that.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think we all have a moment with a coach, even if we didn't go on to do greater things, where we're like, it just really sticks out as a leadership moment that helped you along the way. One thing I did hear you mention too, was you said part of the reason you chose Ohio University was because if something was going to happen and you weren't playing football anymore, you wanted to be able to get a good education, and that was where you wanted to do it. You are a double major in finance and marketing, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
So all while playing football, you double major
and spending nights at the bar.
Yeah. It's easy to do that at Ohio and down in Athens. It's easy to do that. But.
That's true. They are. I think they're known for partying a little bit. I could be wrong there.
Yeah. But my dad was always in business growing up, and my dad was always a big stickler on grades all the way through high school, junior high. And, I would say, in all honesty, my brother and my dad were those very analytical. They see something, they remember it forever, where I was more of, I got good grades, but I had to study. And I remember that work ethic that he kind of installed in me, really led me to get into Ohio University and say, hey, if football ends, which, there's a good chance I'm not going to play after college at the time. And that work ethic that I think he installed with me allowed me to, do the double major, take on that challenge, and realize, hey, do some internships when you can, everything you can do to set yourself up in life. And I think that was part of the reason why I took on the double major and why I did internships and why, I'm somewhat in a pretty good career after football was all because of having that, I guess you could say father figure installing that in me as a young guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you said there was a pretty good chance you weren't going to play after college, but in fact, you did play after college, and you were drafted by the Ravens in the 4th round in 2002. I know you spent a few years there. We're not going to focus on them because we don't really like them. We're going to talk about the Cleveland Browns, and you did come over to the Browns as a free agent in before the 2006 season. So tell us about your time with the Cleveland Browns.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Ravens, because when I got to Baltimore, it was still the same staff that was in Cleveland when they moved. I mean, the same trainer, Ernest Biner, was my running back coach. Ed Tessendorf was a trainer. Ed Carroll was. The stories about Cleveland was fantastic to me because I grew up going to Municipal State with my dad. So I'm sitting here in the Ravens facility talking about old Browns days all the time. And I don't know if it got too much, but it was kind of cool because Ozzie Newsome sometimes would talk about it. And that was kind of fun. So I tell people I played for the old Browns and I played for the new Browns. So it kind of worked out. But
so before you actually talk about your time with the Browns, that you actually mentioning that, it reminded me of something. Do you have any stories about what was was there a lot of bad blood between the Ravens within their organization, towards Cleveland? Because I know obviously it's a big rivalry. We all say they took our team, so we hate them. But is it reciprocal? Do they hate us as much as we hate them over there?
I don't think so. They were still somewhat of a new organization. They were just coming fresh off a Super Bowl, so the last thing on their mind was really Cleveland, right? I mean, they were focusing on how to. We became that next year and a half. I think I came there in the second year, but we became the youngest team in the history of the National Football League like that. I mean, they went from a Super Bowl to going to a super young team. Cleveland they just weren't very good. They had that good year under Butch Davis. So, I think for the Ravens, it was always Pittsburgh. I mean, that was always back then when we played them. And honestly, the Tennessee Titans, those were the big rivalries back then with, Steve McNair and Eddie George. So the focus wasn't really on Cleveland as much as Cleveland's focus was on Baltimore because of the move. But, I think, that rivalry slowly has become, a little bit more of a rivalry in the past 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'll tell you a funny story real quick. And I know we got to move on. But when I got to Baltimore, they were not happy they drafted a punter in the 4th round. I mean, it's like Cleveland drafted a punter in the 4th round. You're like, this guy better be Sebastian Janikowski on steroids, right? So
we drafted Kent York in the 4th round. You saw how that worked out.
Yeah, right. So it was a need position. So I get to Baltimore, and their equipment manager comes up to me and he hands me number 19. He goes, "Hey, I just want to let you know this has been a pretty historic number in the franchise with Johnny Unitas. Nobody's worn number 19 since Johnny Unitas has." And I go, "Hold on." I said, "Give me any other number besides this, because there's no way I'm going to come in as a punter nobody's happy they drafted and taking Johnny Unitas. That's too much pressure for me." So they ended up giving me number 15. So I was thankful.
Man, that is crazy. Of all the numbers they could choose, they came with 19. I can't believe it. Yeah, but like I said, tell us a little bit about your time with the Cleveland Browns. I know you were there 2006 to 2010, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Phil Savage, who helped draft me in Baltimore, became the general manager, and at the time they were really looking to fill the position, the punter position. I know Chris Gardocki was a very consistent guy they had. Then they had a couple of years that the position just wasn't panning out the way they wanted. And I felt 2005 was a great year for me, and I was coming into my prime. And I knew coming to Cleveland, there was advantages and disadvantages. The advantages were I got family here. I grew up a Browns fan, lifelong dream to play for them. Disadvantages are you got terrible wind. You got brutal, November, December games as a punter. It's not easy to kick in Cleveland. And I think you found that out on Sunday. But I went out to dinner with Jerry Rosberg, the special teams coach, and Phil Dawson, and I spent about a good 2 hours with both those guys. And Baltimore is doing everything they could to re-sign me. And Phil's like, no, we want you to come back to Cleveland. At the end of the day, you're making the decision on, I got an organization for 4 years, treated me very well, brought me in the league, took a chance on me, but it's home, And I think for me, it came back and going, I want to fulfill a lifelong dream, but it wasn't an easy decision because you're leaving a team that really got you in the NFL, believed in you, and that was a hard decision. But got to Cleveland, Romeo Crennel was the coach. I just think under Romeo, we were a very young team. We were a little bit of an immature team, and I think Romeo was the perfect head coach for a veteran team. And I think, when he left, they brought Mangini on to bring kind of that, hey, we're bringing a tough mentality, a hard-nosed mentality. And I think, a lot of people don't agree with me, but I think Mangini's last year he was here, he was starting to turn the ship. It was starting to go in the right direction. And the players believe that because he went away from trying to be kind of that Bill Belichick disciple. And we started to see Eric Mangini the way he was in the personality he had come out. We were beating New England. We were beating the Giants. And I really believe if he had another year or two, I think we would have been really going up in that right direction. So I was personally sad to see that happen. But at the same time, I left the team. I had a bad injury, rehabbed, and then Reggie Hodges goes down with Achilles. My agent, Neil Cornrich, him and I discussed. We went back to Cleveland and said, hey, Dave Zastudil is ready. He wants to re-sign with Cleveland. He's fully healed. And for some reason, I believe it was Tom Heckert at the time, just didn't want to go down that road. I don't know why. We don't know why. So then I got an opportunity with Arizona, but fans don't really know that. We pushed hard to re-sign in Cleveland once Reggie Hodges unfortunately went down with the Achilles.
Well, it was Cleveland's loss because obviously in 2012 with the Cardinals is your best year of your career. So
yeah. I ended up having a good few years in the Cardinals, and that's what we said to Cleveland. Hey, man, I have some good years left. I feel really good. But that's the NFL, right? There's decisions you don't understand, but as long as there's an opportunity knocking, in Arizona, I had an opportunity to play against, the Pro Bowl alternate, a guy named Ben Graham, big Australian guy. Chances weren't really good for me to make the team, but I went in, worked really hard, rehabbed, and beat out Ben and earned the job.
No, that's awesome. And so with some of these experiences, I got to ask you, do you have any advice that you have for like current players, especially as they're kind of trying to navigate their careers, maybe switching teams or doing things like that?
Yeah, I would, I first of all, and I hate to say it this way because it's, football is still a sport and, the fans get so honed in on their own players, but you really have to talk to your family about decisions like that. Sometimes, it depends. When you're a young guy, you'll go sign anywhere because you want to get good tape on for other teams to see and you want to show you're a good player. And if the opportunity presents itself with that position opening, you have a good chance to make a dent as a player in the league and get on film. The other side of that thing is, too, as you get older, you have family, you have kids that start getting in school districts, and it's hard to keep moving them around. If the wife's happy, they like the school system, they started making friends. So I think it just depends on what stage you are in your career that helps make those decisions. But at the end of the day, guys, unfortunately, we don't play this game very long. So, when you see guys holding out for the money, you see guys not taking a hometown discount, a lot of times I don't blame them because, most of these guys were out of this league in 5, 6, 7 years, and you miss that first 5, 7, 8 years of getting experience in the real world. So you're already behind the 8 ball. So the most money you can save, put away, and invest, it's a big advice I have for those guys. And I see so many guys blowing their money, and they don't realize it till they're out of the league how big of a mistake that was.
Yeah, no, great advice there. I do know there are a lot of horror stories out there about guys that were big names in the NFL that are dead broke now and have no money to do anything with. So,
Dave, let me ask you. So, I mean, you were a punter, so obviously you kind of know your place in the order of football. Did you ever envision being kind of the fan favorite that you were, just being a specialist? I mean, it's receivers and quarterbacks get all the accolades, but like everybody in Cleveland still loves Dave Zastudil. Like your name comes up, like people like light up, like, oh yeah, like those are, even though they weren't good teams. I think it was because we saw a lot of you. I mean, you kicked a lot of balls for the Browns, but
Dave was always booming punts.
I mean, does that ever just register? Like what are your feelings around that?
Well, I think it's great. What influenced that a little bit is the fact that I was born and raised in Cleveland, or the west side of Cleveland, went to college in Ohio. I wanted to come here. I was part of that free agent class with Joe Jaravicius, Charles Bentley, Bob Hallen, guys that were from Ohio to try to get the team to understand what it's like to really be a Cleveland Brown and influence that locker room. So I think that probably had a little bit to do with that, and that's okay with me. I'm just as big as a fan of the Browns as probably everybody in those seats in the stadium. But also, we had a lot of opportunities to punt the ball, and I think at that time with the teams we had, if Phil Dawson could make field goals, if Dave Zastudil could punt them inside the 20 or change field position, it gave an average team a better opportunity to win a game. And I think fans in Cleveland understand the game of football. They understand how big special teams are. And I think that they appreciated the work that Phil and I did. I just wish I could have done it a little bit longer. And I didn't even learn that end-over-end pooch kick until I got to Arizona. So I wish I had that in my repertoire in Cleveland. I think I would have been a lot more dangerous and a little bit more effective than I was.
That's just a scary thought because you're still pretty damn effective.
But that once you learn that end over end Aussie kick, I mean, it's like no different than golf. You start getting around the 40-yard line, how hard to hit it, and most of the time it's going to spin backwards at the 7-8 yard line. And man, once I learned that, I had that down pat, and I was like, man, if I had that in Cleveland, I think I would have been even better than some of the fans think I was.
And no, totally fair. But again, I mean, we were incredible the time we were here. But other question I had too is just from your perspective, what separates some of the better specialists from the ones that just don't have it? So I think in Cleveland, we've seen a lot of punters come through that have been here a year or two or replaced kind of interchangeably, whereas you kind of had decent stints everywhere you went. I mean, you were there for 4 or 5 years and had a nice long career kicking the ball. What's the difference between the better specialists and the ones that are kind of transient out there that can't find a place?
That's a good question. I think the biggest thing is consistency. You have to be consistent. You'd have guys that come into the league that had some of the biggest legs I've ever seen, but they'd hit a bomb, they'd hit a great kick, they missed 2. Hit a great kick, missed 2. And the ones that stayed around a long time, the guys that I grew up watching, like the Craig Hendricks of the world, I love Shane Leckler. Pat McAfee when he was punting was very consistent, had great legs. But you're always going to look back at your career and always wish that you're always hard on yourself. So I always thought I could be more consistent than I was, and in a lot of times I thought I could be better than I was. But at the same time, there's a lot of conditions that come into play of where I've kicked: Baltimore, Cleveland. for my first 8-9 years was, you had a lot of tough weather half the year that you had to really try to drive that ball, place it a little different, lower the drop because of the wind in your face and the crosswinds, because you're playing in the AFC North. So it changes a lot, but I do think today's punters, for some reason, I watch football all the time. They're big, they're strong, they're consistent. And I just think that's just the evolution of the game of, guys really working on their craft. And I think when you're younger now, even in high school, because I see my own kids in high school and in junior high, there's so many more avenues now for kids to get better and start these things at an earlier age. I just punted because no one else could do it. I always want to be a quarterback, but now you got kids that are doing just kicking, football, punting camps, long snapping camps, and that's all they're doing. And it's good to see because the game's evolving, the position's evolving. Now you got guys doing different types of drops on their punt, knuckleball kicks. It's just really, really evolved more than the average fan would think because they don't really pay attention to those things. They just want to see wins and losses. But it's amazing how much kids these days have an opportunity to excel at something than when we were younger.
For sure.
Yeah. No, and kind of wrapping up with your time in Cleveland here, I know spending time with the franchise, it's more than just playing football. You become really close with your teammates, really close with your community. With that in mind, do you have a favorite off-the-field memory from your time in Cleveland?
I got a couple, but it wouldn't be appropriate for the
show. Do you have any PG-rated ones?
It was nice because we had a really good group of younger core guys. Joe Thomas lived in Westlake. He'd always have us in his backyard. He'd have college football on Sundays, on Mondays when we had day off. We'd be in his backyard on cookouts. We'd be playing everything from cornhole to, some fun drinking games, just some fun things to do on your day off. And I think at the end of the day, it was those memories of building team camaraderie. We had really fun Halloween events where everybody come dress up. You kind of meet there and try to see who had the fun costume. But at the end of the day, the off the field things that we did is, dinners as a group. Like I said, Joe's parties, Halloween parties, those are really where you're like, listen, instead of being on the field all the time, coach is yelling at you, guys pointing fingers sometimes, that's really where a team comes together is when they build those kind of relationships from camaraderie off the field.
My curiosity about Joe Thomas's Halloween parties
keeps growing.
Is continuing to grow because we've heard that.
You're like the 6th or 7th person that we've heard talk about Joe Thomas's Halloween parties.
They do it out there.
I can promise you nothing ever got out of hand, but it was really fun. Joe was just a big, he's a great teammate because he was always laughing, always joking around, always having a good time. And when Halloween came around for a personality like that, it was perfect for him to get those things coordinated and hosted.
For sure.
No, that's awesome.
I know you mentioned the dinners with the team and the group too. Do you have do you guys have a favorite place downtown that was like your normal spot, or did you kind of bounce around all the different places?
We bounced around a lot. A lot of times, we'd always go to Hyde Park in Westlake after the game. They kind of keep Sundays open for us a little bit late when people left, which was kind of nice. But it was kind of cool because Hyde Park, they would have certain, if you have or have not been there, they got a menu, and it's not a place you go to every night. It's actually kind of almost a date night place, but it was kind of confined. We got this little bar area, and they had, names of former players on their menu, and they treated us very, very well. We had some events there, and the general manager always treated us well, but it was very private. We could kind of stick to ourselves, and we wanted to be private, especially after we lost. We don't want to be around people after we lost, so they kind of kept that good for us. But we would bounce around, but that was probably our go-to place back then.
Nice. So I got to say, obviously, fantastic career for you. Special teams, as we've mentioned, is often overlooked, but we really appreciate everything you did to try and make the game easier for the other units while you were here in Cleveland. But I do know for most guys, they get sort of this whole second life after football. So can you tell us what you're up to today? Are you involved with any charities? Are you involved with the game still? What do you got going on?
Yeah, so I can answer that 3 ways. Number one is I was part of the pregame radio show from, I would have to say 2019 to 2021. We're working with Ken Carmen and, Rizzo and those guys. Mm-hmm. But then it took away so much from my kids' sporting events on Sunday, so I unfortunately had to take a break. I love doing it. I still call in time to time with Baskin and Phelps. They ask me on some time to time to come in and talk. But my real career for the past 8 years is I work as a commercial insurance broker on the property and casualty side for a company called Gallagher. So it's one of the big three global brokers. So I do a lot of property and casualty insurance, mostly in the manufacturing sector, nonprofit, some construction. So I've been doing that for 8 years, doing well, having fun with it. And then also in the nonprofit space, there has been some charities that I've always been heavily involved in, especially a good friend of mine started one when, his brother, unfortunately at 27, passed away of throat cancer. So that was a heavy charity, heavy heart to be part of that charity, but it was great. And probably the biggest thing I'm part of now, I've been coaching the 7th grade class in football for the past 3 years. And we had back-to-back undefeated seasons, so that was kind of fun being involved in football and coaching. Nice. And then we started a nonprofit board for Bay football. It's called the Bay Football Club. From K through 8th grade, we try to promote each grade of how we can help, get kids involved in football, grow the program. And it's a nonprofit, but we're heavily involved in. So we got a big event in February at the Bay Lodge. It's a poker night. So you'll start seeing that on social media. Everybody can come if you're welcome.
Nice. So you heard that. Make sure you get signed up for the event and you head on out and support Bay Village, right?
Bay Village, youth football.
Yeah, if you want to tag us in that, we'll help share the whatever information you have on that. That sounds like a great event.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about it. There's only a limited amount of seats, but hey, we can always bring in tents and heaters. So,
and you always take donations.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If you guys repost it, we may have to get this at like a warehouse or something.
Hey, I know we're kind of running short on time here, Dave, but I did want to get your opinion on, obviously you're involved in the youth sports aspect of it. I think we've heard for the last 15 years or so, it seems like there's less and less kids coming out. It's just kind of a concerning trend for those of us that love the game and want to continue to see the game grow. Do you have thoughts around that? I mean, have you seen that personally yourself, or do you still feel like you're getting good numbers out?
It depends. I think it depends on the class of kids. I think it depends on, Malta, you got a lot of, in the past probably 5 to 7 years, there's been an enormous focus on concussions. And I think rightfully so. I mean, I think based on when you see what some of these athletes in football with CTE and those, you really got to take care of them. And I think the way that they're going about concussions now is better for the players' long-term health. But you also have parents, when they see that stuff and they hear about it, get a little concerned with their son playing a 5th grade football with tackle, even 6th grade, even 4th grade. Probably has something to do with it. I think another thing is you have the evolving sports out there that we didn't have as a kid. I mean, we never had lacrosse. Now you got some of these players that all they do is want to play lacrosse, and that's their sport. They train year round for it. So you have, some things like that come into play. But I think at the end of the day, football is America's sport. At the end of the day, we will always have, kids that want to come out and play at all different levels. And now they even have more things that you can do in Canton Hall of Fame. They have the National Flag Football Championships. Our team played in that. In Sandusky, you have, anything from 10, 11, and 12U state championships after their league games that they place it by school. So attendance in school, the enrollment, and then they bracket those schools together. And it's a way for kids to continue to play after their season. And that place, I think in the last 3 years has gained almost 20, 30% of more teams every year. So football's here to stay, but I think concussions and some other emerging sports have affected that too.
I think the Olympics just signed flag football as
I think they did too. Yeah,
in 2028, I think it'll be official sporting Olympics now. So
yeah.
I hope the NFL doesn't keep changing the rules and we turn into flag football.
Yeah, it'll be that soon, right?
Oh, man, that's a topic for another day. We'll save that for the cruise. Speaking of which, I am going to bring this back to the time that we get to share on the open ocean. So let's talk about some of the things that everyone should look forward to on that cruise. Dave, what's the event or activity during the entire cruise that you are looking forward to most?
Honestly, there's going to be a lot of fun events throughout the day. All across a cruise ship. Great activities for kids. But I think what I'm looking forward to most is I think at night, from what I'm told, we're all going to be able to eat together with families and fans. And that's the time where you can really spend some good quality time with everybody, answer questions, tell them stories, locker room stories, things you don't hear about every day. So I think the moment, that's a little bit more intimate, a little bit more time to really talk to people, walk around, introduce yourself, take pictures with kids, give them some autographs. I don't know. They probably look at me now and look at me as an old man, but hopefully they'll still have fun with some older alumni. But that's really what I'm looking forward to is the intimate time of talking with the kids, spending time with them. Because activities, they come and go, right? The kids want to do the activities. They're just going to run around, climb walls, cornhole, whatever we're doing on the ship. But I think that night when we could have a chance to sit down and have dinner with them, look forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so you know, I'm coming to you first for an autograph.
Yeah, me too.
I will save my pen. I won't open it until you come.
There you go. And there is a Browns backers competition out there that I want to talk about for the fan cruise. And so basically the chapter with the most bookings will get an all expenses paid balcony cabin for 2 on the Browns fan cruise. The chapter with the highest members to bookings ratio also gets an all expenses paid ocean view cabin for 2. All members of the winning chapter will receive a specialty dining pass for 2 guests, and all members of the winning chapter will receive a Browns fan cruise commemorative Cleveland Browns autographed football. And so with that in mind, and knowing that there's a competition for Browns backers out there to get some of these cabins booked, do you have anything that you want to say to Browns backers across the nation and honestly across the world?
I just want to say thank you. It's been unbelievable when I played and when I'm seeing it even in today's game, going to San Diego for a game and seeing a Browns backers bar. Going down to Columbus and seeing the events that I've been a part of down there. I mean, Browns fans are everywhere, and they are the best fans in football. And I think what's going to happen is we continue to win as an organization, which I think this year we're going to keep that momentum. Everybody around this globe, everybody around the nation, other teams are going to finally see, because you're going to start paying attention to teams that are winning. And I think when the Browns start winning consistently, everyone's going to see the kind of fans that we really have. And the only people that really know are the opposing players that come in our stadium, because they always have told me, man, what a blessing it is for you to play here, because these fans are outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess talking about the momentum this year and stuff, one last question. You've seen the team so far this year. How do you think they've done, and how do you think they will fare the rest of the way?
I think the offense has been a work in progress. I think the defense has been outstanding. It's elite. It's not good. It's not great. It's elite. That it's at that next level. And this game that we just played will only enhance their confidence, will only enhance that chemistry that they have. So they just got to stay healthy on defense. Special teams, you got one of the best punters in the league. You got one of the best special teams coaches in the league. And you got a kid in Dustin Hopkins that shows that he can consistently make footballs plus 50-yard field goals. The only thing now that we have to continue to get momentum on is the offense, and that really revolves around Deshaun Watson. He had a really good game against Tennessee. It's unfortunate with the injury. We're hoping to see him build on that. But if he can continue to take that next step, this is going to be a team that's just complementing each other in all phases of football. And really, there's no ceiling. You've seen that we beat the best, and you see the other teams out there. To me, there's an opportunity for this team. If they get hot, especially offensively, with the schedule they have, they could be a pretty formidable opponent.
Yeah, but so context for our listeners there, we are recording this right after the 49ers game. So Dave is talking about the hell of a defensive effort that they put up during the 49ers game. And I also want to say our board man, Bone, is a huge Dustin Hopkins fan. So Bone, you want to shout out to Dustin Hopkins real quick?
Yeah, he's great. I love Dustin Hopkins, man.
Yeah, so he's been excited all season with what he's done. But no, Dave, we really appreciate the time that you've spent with us here. And we're looking forward to doing it again on the cruise. We will be I'm sure we'll have an interview with you again while we're actually on the cruise, catching up with you and hearing some stories about your time on the ship. So again, really appreciate it. Thanks for being with us.
Yep. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys, for having me on. I appreciate everything you guys do, too. You're getting these fans an opportunity to really see what it's all about, hear from the players. And I know it takes a lot of hard work and time. So thanks for all your guys' support, too.
Yep, you're too kind. Thank you.
I'm Dave Zastudil, and you're listening to Burning River Sportscast. Go Browns!